Ana Rodriguez crouched behind a broken ventilation unit, watching the alien marketplace through tired eyes. The sounds of 100 different species haggling and trading filled the massive chamber that had once been a cargo bay on Station Omega-7. Her stomach growled loudly enough to make her wince, reminding her that she had skipped breakfast again to save credits. Working as a maintenance tech on the Outer Rim meant surviving on scraps while surrounded by the wealth of the galaxy. She could see Vorthak merchants selling precious metals worth more than she would make in 10 lifetimes, while Kalari traders offered exotic foods that smelled like heaven, but cost more than her monthly rent. The marketplace existed in a legal gray area that station authorities pretended not to notice, as long as the vendors paid their docking fees and kept the violence to a minimum. Commander Roberts looked the other way. Ana had been coming here for months, not to buy anything she could never afford, but just to feel connected to the larger universe beyond her tiny quarters and endless repair schedules. Today something was different, though. A commotion near the back wall caught her attention, where a Vorthak merchant was arguing loudly with a customer in broken standard. The merchant's 4 arms waved dramatically as he pointed at a stack of cages filled with creatures Ana had never seen before. Defective stock, defective stock. The merchant was shouting, "No refunds for buyers who cannot recognize quality when they see it." Ana found herself drawn closer, weaving between other shoppers to get a better look at what had caused such an argument. The cages were stacked 3 high, each one containing something that looked like it belonged in a xenobiology textbook rather than a pet shop. Some creatures glowed with their own internal light. Others had too many eyes or limbs that bent in impossible directions. But in the bottom corner, almost hidden behind the larger displays, sat a cage so small she almost missed it entirely. Inside was something that made her heart skip several beats. Creature was no bigger than her closed fist, with scales that seemed to shift color from deep purple to black depending on how the light hit them. Tiny wings were pressed tight against its back, and when it looked up at her approach, she saw eyes like molten gold that seemed far too intelligent for such a small being. There was something heartbreakingly vulnerable about the way it watched her, pressing its tiny body against the bars of the cramped cage as if hoping for rescue. Ana had always been a sucker for strays and lost causes, which explained why she was 26 years old and living paycheck to paycheck on a space station that barely qualified as civilization. "What about this one?" she asked the Vorthak merchant, pointing at the small cage. The alien barely glanced in her direction, still agitated from his previous argument. "Dragon type from the Rim territories, defective hatchling that will not grow properly, most likely dead. Within a standard cycle, not worth my time to even display properly. How much?" 4 credits. Take it away so I do not have to look at its pitiful form anymore. Ana felt her heart sink and soar at the same time. She had exactly 4 credits and 17 cents until her next paycheck in 6 days. 4 credits would leave her with almost nothing, but looking at the tiny dragon pressed against the bars, she knew she could not walk away. She had always been practical, always responsible, always the one who made sensible choices even when they hurt. That was why she was alone on a space station light years from Earth, why she ate nutrition bars instead of real food, why she had not taken a vacation day in over 2 years. But something about this small creature called to a part of her that she had thought was dead, the part that still believed in hope and wonder, and the possibility that kindness mattered in a universe that often seemed designed to crush it. "I will take it," she said, pulling out her credit chip before she could change her mind. The transaction was quick and impersonal. The merchant shoved the tiny dragon into a basic transport container that looked more suited for shipping spare parts than living beings, handed her a data pad with what appeared to be care instructions in 17 different languages, and immediately turned his attention to other potential customers. "Do not come crying to me when it dies in 2 days," he called over his shoulder, already haggling with a Kalari trader over something that looked like a cross between a plant and a small octopus. Ana clutched the transport container against her chest, feeling the slight vibrations that told her the creature inside was still alive. Her hands were shaking slightly as the reality of what she had just done began to sink in. She had no idea how to care for an alien dragon, no space in her quarters for a pet, and now no credits left for food until next payday. But as she made her way back through the crowded marketplace toward the lifts that would take her to the lower levels where maintenance staff lived, she felt something she had not experienced in years, a sense of purpose beyond just surviving another day. Her quarters were located on level 8, which was generous terminology for what amounted to converted storage space. The corridor was narrow and poorly lit, with the constant hum of recycling systems and the occasional groan of metal under stress that reminded everyone that the station was held together by determination and duct tape. Anna's door was identical to 50 others on the level, marked only by a small nameplate that had seen better decades inside. Her living space consisted of a bed that folded into the wall, a small food preparation area with a replicator that only worked half the time, basic sanitation facilities, and enough floor space for 2 people to stand comfortably if they did not mind being close friends. She set the transport container on her small table and stared at it for several moments, suddenly unsure of herself. What did alien dragons eat? How much space did they need? What if the merchant was right and it died within days because she had no idea what she was doing? Taking a deep breath, Anna opened the container carefully. The tiny dragon emerged on unsteady legs, looking around with obvious intelligence that seemed far beyond what she would expect from a creature so small. Its scales caught the light from her quarter's single lamp, creating shifting patterns of purple and gold that were genuinely beautiful. The dragon looked directly at her and made a soft sound that was somewhere between a chirp and a purr, then patted across the table to her hand. As soon as it touched her palm, she could feel warmth spreading through her fingers along with a faint vibration that reminded her of a cat's purr, but somehow more complex. "Well, little one," she whispered, afraid to speak too loudly in case she frightened it away. "I guess we are stuck with each other now. I do not know much about dragons, but I promise I will do my best to take care of you." The dragon curled up in her palm, and Anna swore she could see understanding in those golden eyes. She decided to call it Ash, after the way its scales seemed to shimmer like embers in dying firelight. That night she made a nest from her spare blanket and watched as Ash settled in with what appeared to be satisfaction. Her stomach grumbled constantly, reminding her of her empty credit account, but every time she looked at the tiny dragon sleeping peacefully in its makeshift bed, she knew she had made the right choice. For the first time in years, Ana Rodriguez fell asleep feeling like she mattered to someone, even if that someone was a possibly defective alien dragon that might not live to see the end of the week. She had no way of knowing that her 4-credit act of kindness was about to change the course of human history forever. Anna woke to the sound of her alarm chirping insistently from across the room. But for the first time in months, she did not immediately feel the crushing weight of another day spent fixing broken systems for ungrateful supervisors. Instead, she felt a warm presence near her shoulder and remembered the events of the previous day with a mixture of excitement and worry. Rolling over carefully, she expected to see the tiny dragon still curled up in the blanket nest she had made. What she saw instead made her sit up so quickly that she nearly fell off the narrow bed. Ash was bigger, much bigger. Where yesterday he had been the size of her fist, now he was easily the size of a house cat. The scales that had shimmered between purple and black now seemed to glow with an inner light, and his wings had developed enough that they looked functional rather than decorative. "What in the stars?" Anna whispered, then stopped herself as Ash turned toward her with those same intelligent golden eyes. The dragon made the same soft chirping sound as before, but underneath it, Anna could swear she heard something else, something that almost sounded like actual words, though in no language she recognized the sound sent shivers down her spine. Not from fear, but from a growing sense that she had stumbled into something far more significant than a simple pet purchase. Anna reached for her comm unit to call in sick to her shift supervisor, her mind racing with questions that had no logical answers. How could anything grow that much overnight? What kind of creature had she really purchased? And why did looking at Ash now make her feel like she was in the presence of something ancient and powerful? "I guess you are not as defective as that merchant thought," she said aloud. And Ash tilted his head in exactly the same gesture he had made as a tiny hatchling. The familiarity of the motion was both comforting and unsettling. Anna spent the morning Watching in fascination as Ash explored her small quarters with obvious intelligence, he quickly figured out how the food replicator worked, though he showed no interest in human food. Instead, he seemed drawn to the small collection of crystals she had gathered from various asteroid mining operations over the years. When she offered him one of the crystals, Ash held it delicately in his claws, and something extraordinary happened. The crystal began to glow, and Anna could feel energy flowing through the air around them. It was not threatening, but it was definitely not normal. "You are not just a dragon, are you?" she asked, and this time she was certain she heard an almost word in Ash's responding chirp. By midday, Ash had grown again. Now he was the size of a medium dog, and his presence filled the small quarters in ways that had nothing to do with his physical size. Anna found herself thinking more clearly than she had in years, as if Ash's presence was somehow sharpening her mind and helping her see connections she had missed before. She spent hours watching him move around the space with a grace that seemed impossible for his size. Every gesture was purposeful, every glance filled with understanding that went far beyond animal intelligence. When he looked at her displays of star charts and technical manuals, Anna got the distinct impression that he was not just seeing them, but analyzing them that evening. Anna tried to research dragon-like species in the station's database but found almost nothing. The few references she discovered were vague and contradictory, with most sources dismissing such creatures as myth or misidentified reptilian species from backwater worlds. Meanwhile, Ash had discovered her small collection of technical equipment and was examining each piece with what appeared to be professional interest. When he touched her portable scanner, the device activated and began displaying readings that made no sense. To Anna, the numbers were far beyond its normal range, as if it was detecting energy sources that should not exist. "What are you seeing?" she asked. And Ash turned to her with an expression that seemed almost frustrated, as if he was trying to communicate something important but lacked the means to do so as night fell. Anna lay in bed listening to Ash move around the quarters. She could hear him exploring, the soft whisper of scales against metal, the occasional flutter of wings that were now large enough to lift him briefly into the air. But there were other sounds too, clicking and tapping that almost sounded like someone working at a computer terminal. Anna drifted off to sleep with a growing certainty that tomorrow would bring even more changes, and that her simple act of kindness was leading to something that would alter her understanding of the universe itself. She woke several times during the night to strange sounds, not threatening, but definitely not normal. There were harmonics in the air that made her teeth ache, and twice she could have sworn she heard what sounded like machinery powering up somewhere nearby. But every time she opened her eyes, she saw only Ash, now nearly the size of a large dog, moving around her quarters with purpose and intelligence. The growth was not just physical either. Anna found herself thinking about concepts that had never occurred to her before. Questions about the nature of consciousness, about the relationship between different species, about humanity's place in the larger galactic community. These were not thoughts that normally occupied the mind of a maintenance worker, but they felt important and urgent in ways she could not explain. By the second morning, Ash was large enough that he had to duck his head to move around comfortably, and his eyes held depths of knowledge that made Anna feel like she was looking into the mind of something far older and wiser than any creature had a right to be. "You are not getting sick and dying, are you?" she asked, remembering the merchant's prediction, and Ash made a sound that was unmistakably amused. The dragon moved to her small computer terminal and touched it with one claw. The screen immediately came alive with data streams and information, displays that Anna had never seen before. It was as if Ash was accessing systems and databases that her simple terminal should not have been able to reach. "You are trying to tell me something," Anna said, and Ash looked at her with what she could only describe as approval. "You are trying to communicate with someone, are not you?" The answer came not in words but in images that seemed to flow directly into her mind. Vast networks of communication spanning the galaxy, councils of beings making decisions that affected entire civilizations, and somewhere in the middle of it all, a small blue world where a young species was taking its first steps into a universe much larger and more complex than they could imagine. Anna gasped as the images faded, leaving her with the overwhelming understanding that Ash was not just intelligent. He was connected to something enormous, something that had been watching humanity for a very long time that night. As she prepared for bed, Anna noticed that Ash had positioned himself near the ventilation grate with what appeared to be deliberate intent. His eyes were fixed on the narrow opening with unmistakable purpose, and she realized with a growing sense of dread that he was planning something. "You are not thinking of leaving, are you?" she asked, but Ash simply looked at her with those ancient golden eyes and made no sound at all. Anna fell asleep with the terrible certainty that when she woke up, everything would be different. Silence woke Anna from the deepest sleep she had experienced in years. The absence of sound hit her consciousness like a physical blow, dragging her from dreams filled with vast star fields and voices speaking in harmonies that human ears were never meant to hear. For 3 days, she had grown accustomed to the subtle sounds of Ash moving around her quarters, the whisper of scales against metal, the soft breathing, the gentle rustle of wings being stretched and folded. The constant presence of those sounds had become as natural as her own heartbeat. Now there was nothing but the standard station hum and the distant vibration of recycling systems. Anna sat up in bed, her heart already racing with a certainty she did not want to acknowledge. "Ash?" she called softly. Then louder when no response came. "Ash, where are you?" The quarters were empty. The ventilation grate she had never paid much attention to had been carefully removed from the inside, leaving a dark opening that seemed to mock her with its obviousness. She grabbed her emergency flashlight and peered into the shaft, but could see nothing except scratches in the metal that looked unmistakably like claw marks. Anna slumped against the wall, her mind struggling to process what had happened. 3 days ago, Ash had been the size of her fist. The last time she had seen him, he was roughly the size of a large dog. The ventilation shaft was barely wide enough for a maintenance robot, unless Ash could change his size at will, unless everything she thought she understood about him was wrong, unless the growth she had witnessed was not natural development but conscious shapeshifting. The implications of that possibility sent cold terror racing through her veins. What exactly had she brought onto the station? What was now loose in the infrastructure, moving through systems designed for human habitation but potentially vulnerable to something with intelligence and abilities far beyond anything the designers had imagined? Anna dressed quickly, her hands shaking as she tried to think through the situation rationally. If Ash was in the ventilation system, there were limited places he could go. The station's layout was designed for efficiency, not complexity. Most of the major systems were centrally located for easier maintenance access. She made her way to the security office, using her maintenance credentials to access the basic station schematics. If anyone asked what she was doing, she would claim she was investigating unusual sounds in the ventilation system. That would be technically true, even if it barely scratched the surface of the real situation. The security office was empty at this hour, which made Anna's unauthorized research easier, but also more nerve-wracking. She pulled up the internal sensor logs, looking for any unusual readings from the past few hours. What she found made her stumble backward from the console in shock. Readings showed massive energy fluctuations throughout the station's lower levels. Fluctuations that had started exactly when Ash had begun exploring her quarters 3 days ago. But more disturbing were the current sensor readings from the ventilation system. They showed a heat signature that was far too large to be the creature she had purchased, moving through the station's infrastructure with obvious purpose and intelligence. The heat signature was heading directly toward the primary communication arrays. Anna's blood turned to ice as the pieces began falling into place. Ash had shown unusual interest in her computer terminal. He had somehow accessed systems that should have been beyond its capabilities. He had looked at her star charts and technical manuals with professional understanding. And now he was moving toward the most sensitive communication equipment on the station. She had not purchased a pet dragon. She had somehow acquired an intelligence operative of unknown origin and capabilities, and it was now loose on a human deep space station, with access to quantum communication systems that connected to every human colony in this sector of the galaxy. Anna ran through the corridors toward the communication hub, her mind racing with possibilities that ranged from bad to catastrophic. If Ash was some kind of spy or saboteur, he could compromise human communication networks, steal classified information, or worse. Yet something in her memory of those golden eyes told her that destruction was not his purpose. The communication hub was located in the station's central core, surrounded by security systems that should have made unauthorized access impossible. Anna used her maintenance credentials to get past the outer checkpoints, knowing that her unauthorized presence would be logged but hoping she could reach Ash before station security realized what was happening. The hub's main chamber was filled with quantum communication equipment that represented the cutting edge of human technology. Arrays of crystalline matrices processed information at speeds that pushed the boundaries of physics, while massive processing cores coordinated communications across dozens of star systems. And in the center of it all was Ash. Anna stopped breathing as she took in what she was seeing. Ash had grown again, now easily the size of a large horse, his scales gleaming with an inner luminescence that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the communication equipment around him. Tendrils of bioelectric energy connected his claws to the main console, and data was flowing across the screens faster than any human could process. He was not destroying the equipment. He was using it, interfacing with it in ways that should have been impossible for any biological creature. Anna could see information flowing between Ash and the communication arrays, vast streams of data being transmitted and received at speeds that made her head spin. "My God," she whispered, and Ash turned toward her with those golden eyes that now blazed with unmistakable intelligence and something that might have been relief when he spoke. His voice resonated not just in the air but somehow directly in her mind, carrying harmonics of warmth and what felt like genuine affection. "Ana Rodriguez of Earth," he said, his mental voice carrying undertones that spoke of vast age and cosmic perspective. "Thank you for your kindness. I'm sorry for the deception, but it was necessary for both our peoples." Anna's legs gave out, and she slumped against the doorframe, her mind struggling to process the reality of a telepathic conversation with what she now understood was definitely not a simple dragon. "You can talk. You could always talk. I am known to my people by a name that would be difficult for human vocal cords to pronounce, though you may continue to call me Ash if you prefer the name you gave me with such care." The massive dragons, head tilted in exactly the same gesture she remembered from when he was tiny. "I am what your species would call a scout, though we prefer the term observer." "Observer of what?" Anna managed to ask, though she was beginning to suspect she already knew the answer. "Of humanity. Of your species' development, your capacity for growth, your potential place in the larger galactic community." Ash's attention returned briefly to the communication arrays, and Anna could see that he was still transmitting vast amounts of information to somewhere beyond the station. "Your people have reached a critical juncture in their development. You have achieved reliable interstellar travel, established trade, relationships with other species, begun to build permanent installations in space. My people needed to determine whether you were ready for what comes next." "What comes next?" Anna asked, though part of her was terrified to hear the answer. "Contact real, contact with civilizations that make the traders in your marketplace look like primitive nomads, with beings who have shaped the development of intelligent life throughout this galaxy for millions of years." Ash's massive form shifted, and Anna noticed that despite his size, he moved with impossible grace, never disturbing a single piece of delicate equipment. The question was whether humanity possessed the qualities necessary to join that community as partners rather than subjects. Anna felt the weight of cosmic destiny settling on her shoulders like a physical presence. "And what did you decide?" Ash looked at her with what she could only describe as profound affection. 3 days ago, a maintenance worker with barely enough credits to feed herself spent her last money to save what she believed was a dying creature. She provided care and shelter without any expectation of reward. When I revealed aspects of my true nature, her first concern was not for her own safety, but for understanding how she might help. That told me everything I needed to know about humanity's character. The dragon's golden eyes seemed to look directly into her soul, You passed the test, Anna Rodriguez, and in doing so, you opened a door that will change the course of human history forever. Anna stared at the magnificent being before her, trying to reconcile the tiny, helpless creature she had rescued with this cosmic intelligence that spoke directly into her mind. The communication hub hummed with energy as data streams flowed between Ash and systems she could not even begin to understand. You said I passed a test, Anna whispered, her voice barely audible above the electronic symphony surrounding them. What kind of test requires deceiving someone for 3 days? Ash's mental voice carried what felt like ancient sadness mixed with hope. The kind that determines whether a species deserves to survive its transition into galactic civilization. Most intelligent races destroy themselves within a few centuries of achieving interstellar travel. They become consumed with conquest, resource extraction, or technological development at the expense of wisdom and compassion. The dragon's massive head turned toward displays showing star maps that Anna recognized as human space, but with additional markers and notations that suggested a much larger picture. Your species stands at that same crossroads. You have the technology to spread across the galaxy, but the question remains whether you will do so as builders or destroyers. Anna felt overwhelmed by the implications of what she was hearing. So you have been watching us how long? Several of your centuries we have observed your wars and your peace treaties, your scientific advances and your social evolution, your treatment of other species and your capacity for individual sacrifice. Information continued flowing across the screens around them, and Anna caught glimpses of human history displayed in ways she had never seen before. Most species at your level of development show consistent patterns. They prioritize their own survival above all else, view other intelligences as threats or resources, and lose the ability to act against their immediate self-interest. But humans are different. Remarkably so. Your literature consistently celebrates individuals who sacrifice for others. Your greatest leaders are remembered, not for their conquests, but for their service to their people. Even your entertainment regularly portrays the triumph of cooperation over domination, mercy over revenge. Ash's golden eyes seemed to glow brighter as he spoke. Most telling of all, when your species encounters other intelligences, your first instinct is curiosity rather than fear. Anna thought about her own reaction to finding Ash in the marketplace, how her immediate response had been compassion rather than caution. But I am just one person. How can you judge an entire species based on what I did? Because what you did was not unusual for your kind. We have observed countless similar acts throughout human space. A cargo hauler who risked her ship to rescue stranded miners. A diplomat who gave up his career to protect a primitive species from exploitation. A child who shared her food with a hungry alien in a refugee camp. The data streams around them shifted, showing images that Anna realized were actual events from across human civilization. Your species consistently chooses kindness when it would be easier to choose indifference. Anna felt a surge of pride that surprised her. She had always thought of humanity as flawed and struggling, barely managing to hold civilization together in the face of endless challenges. To hear their behaviors described as remarkable by an obviously advanced intelligence was both humbling and inspiring. What happens now? She asked. You said something about real contact. The Council of Flames has been debating humanity's readiness for over 50 of your years. Some members believed your species was too young, too unpredictable, too prone to violence. Others argued that you showed unique potential that should be nurtured rather than left to develop in isolation. Ash's attention returned to the communication arrays, and Anna could sense vast amounts of information being transmitted across unimaginable distances. My mission was to provide the Council with definitive evidence of your species' character, and my 4 credits convinced them we are ready for galactic civilization. Your 4 credits, along with millions of other similar acts that we have cataloged over the centuries, convinced them that humanity possesses something most species lose as they advance technologically: the belief that individuals matter, that kindness is strength rather than weakness, that the strong have a responsibility to protect the weak. Anna watched the data flowing around them, and began to understand that she was witnessing something unprecedented. You are recommending that humans be accepted as equals rather than subjects. I am recommending something that has not been granted to any species in over 3,000 years. Ash's mental voice carried overtones of excitement and wonder. Full partnership in the Galactic Preserve, not as junior members learning from their betters, but as equals with unique contributions to offer the community of intelligent life. The implications hit Anna like a physical force. What does that mean for humanity? It means access to technologies that will revolutionize your civilization, clean, unlimited energy that will end your dependence on fossil fuels, medical advances that will extend life and eliminate most diseases, transportation methods that will make the entire galaxy accessible to your people. The displays around them began showing images of technologies that looked like magic to Anna's maintenance worker perspective. But more importantly, it means responsibility. What kind of responsibility? The same responsibility that my people and others have carried for millennia, shepherding younger species, protecting them from the mistakes that destroyed countless civilizations before them, helping them develop wisdom alongside technology. Ash's form seemed to glow brighter as he spoke. Your species will become guides for intelligences just beginning their journey into space, teachers for civilizations struggling with the same challenges humanity faced centuries ago. Anna felt the weight of cosmic destiny settling on her shoulders. Why us? What makes humans qualified to guide other species? Because you never lost your sense of wonder, your willingness to help others even at personal cost, your belief that every individual consciousness has value regardless of its form or origin. The dragon's golden eyes fixed on her with unmistakable affection. Most advanced species develop a cold pragmatism that values efficiency over compassion. Humans consistently choose the harder path if it means protecting or helping others. The communication arrays around them began displaying new information, star charts showing species and civilizations Anna had never heard of, technical specifications for technologies beyond her comprehension, and what appeared to be formal documents in scripts that hurt her eyes to look at directly. The Council's decision has been transmitted to every member civilization in this galactic sector. Ash informed her. Within days, representatives from a dozen species will arrive at human colonies to begin the integration process. Your people will learn that the universe is far more crowded and complex than they imagined. Anna struggled to process the magnitude of what was happening. And it all started because I bought a dragon in an alien marketplace. It started because when faced with a choice between self-interest and compassion, you chose compassion without hesitation. That choice, multiplied across millions of humans throughout your civilization, proved that your species possesses the moral foundation necessary for cosmic citizenship. The massive dragon began to shift, and Anna realized that the energy flowing between him and the communication systems was changing. What are you doing now? Completing my report and preparing for the next phase. My mission as an observer is complete, but my role as humanity's advocate within the Galactic Preserve is just beginning. Ash looked at her with what she could only describe as gratitude. I came here expecting to file a routine assessment of another developing species. Instead, I discovered something precious, a reminder that individual acts of kindness can reshape the destiny of entire civilizations. Anna felt tears forming in her eyes as she realized that everything was about to change, not just for her, but for every human alive. Will I see you again? Anna Rodriguez of Earth. You will be remembered as the woman whose 4 credits opened the door to humanity's greatest adventure. Ash's mental voice carried warmth that felt like a cosmic embrace. And yes, you will see me again. You have earned a place in the discussions that will determine how best to integrate your species into the galactic community. The dragon's form began to shimmer, and Anna understood that whatever process had allowed him to interface with the station's systems was coming to an end. Get ready, he told her gently. Your universe is about to become much larger. Commander Roberts received the emergency alert while reviewing routine maintenance reports in his office. The message was simple but alarming. Unauthorized entity detected in the primary communication hub. All security teams to respond immediately. He had been expecting equipment malfunctions or maybe another smuggling operation, not the discovery that would rewrite human understanding of their place in the universe. Roberts led his security team through corridors that suddenly felt smaller and more primitive than they had an hour before. When they reached the communication hub, what they found challenged every assumption about reality they had carried throughout their careers. Ana Rodriguez, a maintenance worker he barely knew by name, sat calmly beside the most magnificent creature any of them had ever seen. The dragon's presence filled the chamber with an almost tangible sense of ancient wisdom and cosmic significance, while displays around them showed information that looked like it belonged in science fiction rather than operational reality, Commander. Ana said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. I would like you to meet Keeper of the First Flame. He has some important things to tell us about humanity's future. Roberts opened his mouth to demand explanations, to assert authority, to restore some semblance of normal protocol. Instead, he found himself staring into golden eyes that seemed to contain the accumulated wisdom of civilizations and feeling very small in comparison. Commander Roberts. The dragon spoke directly into his mind, and Roberts nearly dropped his weapon in shock. I apologize for the unconventional nature of this contact, but circumstances required discretion until the appropriate moment your species has reached a critical juncture that demands immediate attention from the galactic community. The security team stood frozen, their training completely inadequate for a situation involving telepathic dragons and cosmic revelations Roberts managed to find. His voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. What are you? I am an observer, sent by the Council of Flames to assess humanity's readiness for integration into the larger community of intelligent life. Ash's mental voice carried patience mixed with urgency. Your species has been monitored for several centuries as you developed interstellar capabilities. The question was whether you possessed the wisdom and character necessary to become partners rather than subjects in galactic civilization. Roberts felt his worldview crumbling and rebuilding. Itself in real time. You have been watching us for centuries? Indeed, and what we observed was remarkable. Most species that achieve your level of technological development become consumed with expansion and resource acquisition. They view other intelligences as competitors or threats to be eliminated. Humanity consistently demonstrates the opposite behavior. The dragon gestured toward Ana with obvious affection. 3 days ago, this woman spent her last credits to save what she believed was a dying creature. She provided care without expectation of reward when I revealed my true nature. Her first concern was understanding how she might help. This behavior is not unusual for your species. It is representative of a pattern we have observed throughout human space. Robert struggled to process the implications. You are saying that buying a pet convinced you we are ready for contact with alien civilizations? I am saying that your species' consistent choice of compassion over self-interest, cooperation over domination, and individual dignity over collective efficiency has convinced the Council of Flames to extend an offer that has not been made to any species in 3 millennia. Information began flowing across the displays around them, showing star maps and technical specifications that made Roberts feel like a child looking at adult textbooks. Humanity is invited to join the galactic preserve as full partners. Security Chief Martinez, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. What does that mean exactly? It means access to technologies that will revolutionize your civilization, energy systems that will make scarcity obsolete, medical advances that will extend healthy life by centuries, transportation methods that will make the galaxy your home. The displays shifted to show images of cities that seemed to grow from living crystal, ships that moved between stars like thoughts, and beings of such beauty and complexity that human minds could barely process them. But more than that, it means responsibility for shepherding younger species as they develop. Roberts felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders in entirely new ways. Why us? What makes humans qualified for such responsibility? Because your species never lost the understanding that individuals matter. Your literature celebrates heroes who sacrifice for others. Your leaders are remembered for service rather than conquest. Even your entertainment consistently portrays the triumph of mercy over revenge. Ash's golden eyes seemed to look directly into Robert's soul. Most advanced species develop efficient pragmatism, that views kindness as weakness. Humans view kindness as strength. Communications Officer Blake, who had been monitoring the displays, spoke up in amazement. "Sir, I am receiving transmission acknowledgments from dozens of star systems I have never heard of. They are all confirming receipt of something called Integration Protocol 7. The Council's decision has been communicated to all member civilizations in this sector," Ash explained. "Within standard days, representatives from multiple species will arrive at human colonies to begin the integration process. Your people will learn that the universe is far more complex and populated than they realized." Roberts tried to wrap his mind around the scale of what was happening. And this all started because a maintenance worker bought a dragon. It started because when faced with a choice between personal comfort and helping a suffering creature, Ana Rodriguez chose compassion. That choice, reflected in millions of similar acts throughout human civilization, demonstrated that your species possesses the moral foundation necessary for cosmic citizenship. Anna spoke for the first time since the security team's arrival. "Commander, I know this is overwhelming. I am still processing it myself. But Ash, keeper of the first flame, he is not asking us to change who we are. He is saying that who we are is exactly what the galaxy needs." The dragon's form began to shift. Scales, taking on new patterns of light that seemed to pulse in harmony with the communication equipment around them. "Commander Roberts, you and your crew are about to become the first humans to participate in formal galactic diplomacy. The representatives who arrive will be evaluating not just your technological capabilities but your character and wisdom. What should we do to prepare?" Roberts asked, feeling completely out of his depth. "Be yourselves. That is what qualified your species for this opportunity in the first place." Ash's mental voice carried warmth and what might have been amusement. "The beings you will meet have technologies that seem like magic and lifespans measured in millennia, but they have chosen to invite humanity as equals because you possess something they value: the ability to see every individual consciousness as worthy of protection and respect." Roberts looked around at his team, seeing the same mixture of terror and wonder in their faces that he felt in his own heart. What happens to our independence, our right to govern ourselves? Nothing. The Galactic Preserve is not an empire that absorbs member species. It is a community of partners working together to nurture and protect intelligent life throughout the galaxy. The displays showed images of beings working together in ways that transcended species boundaries. Humans will remain human, governing yourselves according to your own values and traditions. You will simply no longer be alone. Communications throughout the station began activating as news of the contact spread. Officers and civilians gathered in corridors and common areas, their faces turned toward displays showing information about civilizations and technologies beyond their wildest dreams. "The real work begins now," Ash informed them. "Integration will take years as your people learn about galactic society and determine how best to contribute to the community. Your scientists will collaborate with beings who have studied the universe for millions of years. Your philosophers will debate ethics with intelligences that have guided the development of consciousness across entire star clusters." Roberts felt a surge of pride mixed with overwhelming responsibility. "And you believe we are ready for this?" "I believe humanity is not just ready but necessary." The dragon's golden eyes blazed with conviction. "The galaxy has become too focused on efficiency and long-term planning. It needs species that remember the value of individual kindness, the importance of hope, the strength that comes from choosing to help rather than simply to survive." Anna stood up, her face glowing with wonder and determination. "What can I do to help?" "You have already done more than you know." Ash's mental voice carried profound gratitude. "Your 4 credits purchased not just my freedom from that cage, but humanity's freedom to join the greatest community of minds in the galaxy. You will be remembered as the woman who opened the door to your species' cosmic destiny." The communication hub filled with light as quantum transmission arrays began receiving data from across the galaxy. Star charts, cultural databases, technological specifications, and formal invitations to participate in councils that had been shaping galactic civilization since before humans developed agriculture. Roberts looked at Anna Rodriguez, maintenance worker turned cosmic diplomat, and realized that everything they had thought they knew about humanity's future had been transformed by a simple act of kindness toward a creature in need. "Well then," he said, his voice gaining strength as he accepted the magnitude of what lay ahead, "I guess we better get ready to meet our new neighbors." Outside the station's viewports, the stars seemed brighter somehow, no longer distant points of light but destinations waiting to welcome humanity home. The galaxy had just become a much larger and more wonderful place, and it all began with 4 credits and the belief that kindness matters. Anna Rodriguez smiled as she watched displays showing ships already heading toward human space, carrying representatives of civilizations that would soon become partners in the greatest adventure any species could imagine. Her simple act of compassion had indeed changed everything, proving that even in a universe of unimaginable scale and complexity, individual choices still had the power to reshape destiny itself. The age of humanity as a galactic species had begun, and it started with a girl who could not walk away from a creature in need.